Welcome if you dare. You've stepped into a world where shadows whisper, where every creak in the floor holds a secret. And tonight, you're about to hear a story that will haunt your dreams. Before we begin, make sure you're not alone, or you're ready to uncover what really happened in today's story. Don't forget to subscribe if you're brave enough, because what lurks in this channel is far more terrifying. Let's begin.
The mysterious little town of Thistlebrush is known for its quirky characters, but none enigma shrouded more than Grandma Addledown. Her house, a peculiar establishment tucked at the corner of Honeysuckle Lane, seemed to breathe with secrets, its architecture defying the mundane logic of bricks and mortar. Her hair, a wild halo reminiscent of a storm's aftermath, matched her reputation as the curious woman possessed by odd whims and whispers of bygone eras. Yet, it was one fiery evening that her riddle-strewn existence lit the town's imagination. It began as an ordinary day, with the sun glazing the rooftops and stirring the wind with its golden hands, until dusk settled in like a layover on a somber journey. The neighbor, Harold Trumpwell, whose life was as meticulous as the ticks of his ancient grandfather clock, found himself caught in the tremors of confusion as the flames licked upward towards the sky above Grandma's house. Unlike any ordinary blaze, this fire seemed intent on telling a story, a grand and terrifying spectacle of narratives unfurling in red tendrils. Emergency sirens cut through the air, but their frenzy seemed muted against the backdrop of what felt less like an accident and more like a revelation waiting to unfold. As firefighters battled the blaze, Harold found himself standing at the forefront of his property, somberly gazing at the pandemonium. His eyes watered not just from the smoke, but from the charred testimony swirling in whispers around him. "Grandma Addledown," he shouted, drowning in the sea of fear engulfing him. People were evacuated hurriedly, but Harold's focus remained undeterred amidst the chaos and a million embers dancing like moths. Across the boundary between mystery and panic, the fire, ferocious as it was alluring, seemed to culminate in a dazzling burst, revealing in its aftermath a relic of a key shimmering among the blackened ruins. Harold picked it up gingerly, its touch whispering secrets into his bones, a feeling that was both unsettling and inviting in a way he couldn't quite comprehend. As the fire was quenched, he found the courage to skulk into what remained of Grandma Addledown's bizarre abode, a ghost of its former self. The inside, though burnt, still clung to its whimsical charm. An array of curious old manuscripts, peculiar maps, and quills lay scattered like cryptic clues beckoning adventure. "Harold," said Detective Blythe, a figure as steadfast as the shadows of forgotten trees, as she paced in with authority and curiosity. Her presence meant unraveling knots tied in silence. "Detective," Harold replied, "I found this key." Detective Blythe took it, examining its intricate, almost ancient design intrinsically linked with the riddles the house vowed to guard. This could be something significant. Harold, Grandma Addledown lived for mysteries, riddles buried within this house. Maybe she left us stories to solve, perhaps answers to questions we've never dared ask. The two conspired over the key's potential, realizing its etchings mirrored the markings on one of the surviving manuscripts. The evening grew into the creation of new possibilities, where reality drifted closer to the enigma long woven into Grandma's residence. Harold, compelled by a purpose yet undefined, continued his exploration alongside Detective Blythe, unwrapping tales within scorched pages that mystically connect the pieces of their lives with Grandma's eccentric narrative. Her neighbor, the professor, continued Blythe, had long talked about discovering peculiar files within the walls. Lie latent, perhaps. There's much more underneath, untapped potential. The fire might have awakened old secrets, With each page turned, truths blended into suspicions and suppositions. The key led them deeper into a labyrinth of interwoven stories, enshrined in the house's very foundation. Ultimately, the exploration led to an old, weathered chest in the basement, a ceremonial piece stuck within dark moments. The key seamlessly unlocked it, revealing an assembly of letters, journals, and artifacts that strengthened roots in Grandma's saga. In those archives were messages voicing her lingering whispers of the past, that spoke of a theologian, explorer, an artist, her ancestor. She continued his works through life's trials, sustaining wonder and igniting kindling. Fire was never a threat, Harold mused, but a guide to uncover what lay dormant. Seeking revelation, Detective Blythe nodded, the mystery sewn together in embroidered gestures, becoming a platform for every Thistlebrush spirit that trials do not vanish in smoke, but gather in grandeur to redefine dreams. Harold, now transformed, understood Grandma's legacy of fire. As a flame of inquisitive exploration, his neighbor had freed the town from imaginations, restrained to the norms of their mundane lives. The house became not only a monument of her narrative, but a lighthouse for the town's unsolved riddles and untapped quests, weaving together fates into vibrant tapestries, enshrined in time beyond her fire-streaked night. Thus, as the embers settled, Harold believed he had inherited not just a story to follow, but a lifetime of mystery invitingly lit by Grandma Adeldown's blaze. In the shadowy embrace of the crescent moon, a chilling wind swept through the quiet village of Black Hollow. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, as though it awaited some dark revelation. It was on such nights that the villagers whispered of Miriam Copole. Miriam was not your ordinary grandmother. A cascade of silver hair flowed down her back, and her eyes blazed with an unsettling intensity. Stories of her youthful days were rife with tales of inexplicable occurrences. The old river that ran dry when she glanced at it, the crop field that thrived despite a season of drought, and the unfortunate flames that flickered out whenever she passed by. The villagers regarded Miriam with a mixture of awe and apprehension. She lived alone at the edge of the village in the decaying Copole Manor, a structure as haunting as its mistress. Its windows were blind with age, and the once stately gardens were overrun with wild flora, twisted and tangled like specters dancing in the night. The village slumber was shattered one night as a frantic scream sliced through the air. It was young Anna, breathless with terror, her eyes wide as saucers. Fire at the baker's house. The villagers gathered like moths to a flame. The baker's cottage was engulfed in fierce, hungry flames, licking at the walls with fiery tongues. The fire roared like a beast unleashed, determined to consume every wooden beam and shred of history within. "To arms!" shouted old Mr. Hemsworth, rallying the villagers to battle the inferno. They scurried, throwing buckets of water, their faces taut with fear and desperation. The flames seemed unmoved by their efforts, growing only more ferocious. In the midst of the chaos, Miriam Copole emerged, an apparition of calm against the tumultuous backdrop. Her presence drew murmurs and nervous glances. But ultimately, hope settled in the villagers' hearts, for Miriam was their last card. Miriam surveyed the blaze, her gaze unwavering. Her lips moved in silent, mysterious incantations, her hands weaving through the air with ancient grace. The flames, thrashing and voracious, began to hesitate, quivering as if sensing their doom. "Will she be able to do it?" someone murmured, voicing the doubt that hovered like smoke. Miriam took a step closer, her silhouette cast against the fiery backdrop. "This fire has a spirit," she spoke, her voice melodious yet commanding. "It's angry, hungry for more than just wood and stone." The villagers stepped back, watching in awe as their eccentric elder communed with elements beyond their understanding. Miriam's eyes glimmered with an arcane light, and her whispering embers of language filled the air. The flames flickered, hesitated, and then began to recede. It was as if Miriam held them in her invisible grip, taming the blaze with unfathomable power. The fire whined a keening lament, spiraling down like a beast tamed by a master's command. For long moments, the villagers stood transfixed, until the last of the flames were swallowed by the midnight air, leaving behind smoldering embers. In a charred yet intact structure, a hushed silence enveloped the scene, broken by the tentative voice of Baker himself. "You did it, Miriam," he said, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and bewilderment. She nodded solemnly, her eyes still fixed on the smoldering remains. "A fire needs more than mere extinguishing. You must understand it, soothe its fury, and persuade it to relent." The villagers murmured their thanks, scattering yet again with newfound respect and a sliver of apprehension toward their enigmatic savior Dot as Miriam turned to head back to her manor. Enna, the youngest of the villagers and the most curious, trotted up to her side. "Grandmother Copole, how did you do that?" Miriam paused, her gaze settling on the curious girl. "It's not something I can truly explain, dear. It's a gift or perhaps a curse that the earth itself bestowed upon me." She winked, a touch of mischief dancing in her eyes. Anna looked around at the scorched earth. "Drawing secrets. Can I learn?" A gentle, yet firm hand rested atop Anna's head. "Not here. Not now." Miriam chuckled softly, an ancient melody of secrets. "Perhaps someday, when the spirits deem you worthy of such mystery." Anna nodded, satisfied with the promise of eternity scrawled across the stars in Miriam's eyes. As the determined fingers of dawn began to peel back the layers of night, Black Hollow stood unchanged, yet undeniably different. Enriched with the legend of the night, Miriam Copole quelled a fire's rage with nothing but whispers and vision. From that day forth, Miriam became less of the crazed recluse and more revered guardian of secrets to kind best left unsaid, echoing in whispers, at the edges of dreams, where fires dance and where even the bravest dare to trespass. In the twilight of her years, Sylvia Whately had acquired a reputation that sent icy shivers down the spines of every child, an adult alike who dared to whisper behind her back. Her grand Victorian house, once a sanctuary of warmth and hospitality, now loomed over the small coastal town of Wyndhurst with a sense of impending dread. It was said Sylvia's mind was well and truly lost, spiraling into madness like the spiral staircase leading up to her attic, where few dared to tread. "Beware the Whately house," mothers would warn their children, "for Sylvia's eyes see more than your soul." But for Lewis, Sylvia's eldest grandchild, the warnings were meaningless. Called back to Wyndhurst by his father's strained letter, he arrived at the house, knowing he had a duty to fulfill, bury the remnants of a once loving matriarch. The air was saturated with the scent of Celine and lavender, mingling with traces of something burned, something old. Lewis clutched his suitcase tightly as he stepped onto the porch, the wooden boards creaking a wary greeting. Behind the stained glass window, he caught a flicker of shadowy movement. "Welcome back, Lewis," a voice croaked, as ancient as the walls themselves. Sylvia sat nestled amidst threadbare tapestries and crumbling stucco. Her hair, now a wild halo of white, framed a face marked by age and wisdom turned folly. "Grandmother, I'm here to help." His words faded beneath the weight of her piercing gaze. Sylvia cackled, a sound like the rustling of dead leaves. "Help, you say? All thanks to you, and starts before you," she whispered, cryptically gesturing to the chaos strewn across the parlor. Family portraits tilted at troubling angles, shadows cast by twisted candlelight flustered, Lewis stepped deeper into the room, glancing at the hearth where flames licked begrudgingly at half-burned logs. Father said the house has been difficult, to say the least. As you have, Lewis offered meekly. Her eyes narrowed. Difficult only because it listens. It knows, Sylvia muttered. Fire always remembers. The tales of Sylvia's scandalous past were legendary. In her youth, the Whately house stood testament to joy and opulence. Parties echoing with laughter, children dancing in the corridors, and the smell of freshly baked bread drifting from the kitchen. Yet something unnameable loomed like a shrouded figure in the dark corners of the house, ever patient and ever present. Years before, they said Sylvia had struck a bargain with the smoke and mirrors the house offered, trading sanity for secrets whispered in the embers' glow. And once she took the deal, it was as if the house began to breathe in tandem with her madness. Sylvia gestured to the fireplace, her gnarled fingers tracing the outline of its ornate frame. It's a long story, Lewis, a story beyond the reach of this mortal plane. Her voice was low and haunting, a melody trapped in an endless loop. Lewis paused, realizing the shadows had grown longer, deeper, eerily definable as faces hungrily devouring the flickering light. Stories can be, he began, but was interrupted by a sudden gust that snuffed out the flames. The room plunged into darkness, a tangible silence gaping between them. Sylvia chuckled again, the sound more unsettling than before. The house remembers. Lewis, it knows who betrayed its whispers. An icy thrill ran through his spine, as if the parquet beneath his feet had come alive, unsettled by years of memory and resentment. With trembling resolve, Lewis climbed the staircase, winding upwards with each creak growing louder, echoing like an orchestra of forgotten footsteps. The attic door loomed ahead, unyielding, covered in dust and time's gnarled fingers. He stepped inside. Sheets draped over archaic furniture mimicked specters he'd heard in childhood tales. His hand brushed against one, revealing the burned outline of a portrait his own face. Smiling up from the charred frame, Sylvia's voice drifted up, her words singing through timber beams. The fire starts here. You see, it invites listeners, deceivers, those with iron hearts. Trembling, Lewis understood, finally piecing the story together like radiation from the ashes fires once kindled, had reshaped the lives contained within these walls. And Sylvia, architect of 1,000 tragic endings, had surrendered her soul to ignite this cursed legacy. The room pulsed, breathing him in. Whispering screams caught between floorboards. "Grandmother," Lewis called out, desperate to break the spell. "I'll end this." Sylvia's laughter replied, a haunting choir releasing its final aria. Downstairs, the house groaned under its own weight. Flames licked upwards as though eager to reclaim their prize. The choice was clear. If the house was to be freed, it demanded sacrifice. Without hesitation, Lewis descended the staircase, confronting Sylvia with hardened resolve. "It's been a long story, Grandmother. Time it finds closure," he murmured, stoking the fire until dawn and embers alike gave way. Sylvia reclined back, a piece of solace in her fiendish smile, acknowledging this final chapter. Morning rose over Wyndhurst as the house burned, sky painted red and gold, a blaze consuming past and present mistakes, weaving history's locks with those yet to be born. And stories like Sylvia's, whispered in wisps of smoke, refused to stay silent even as ashes settled. The town spoke of Lewis as the heir, who inherited not just the house but its secrets, the one who finally faced the ghost veiled in darkness. As his car rumbled away, the whispers grew quieter. Peace washed over Wyndhurst until the next narrator dared to listen. At the edge of the forest in the small town of Eldergrove stood a creaky old house, with peeling paint and crooked window shutters. It was the kind of house that children dared each other to approach on Halloween, though few ever did. It belonged to Grandma Drusilla, a woman whose eccentricities had become town legend. She was known for her peculiar habits, like hanging garlic at every window and muttering to herself as she tended to her garden, which was said to glow crimson under the moonlight. Amidst muttered warnings and whispers, Charlie and his older sister, Lily, walked the path leading up to Grandma Drusilla's house on a sweltering August afternoon. They were the only relatives willing to visit her anymore. Their mother had sent them with a basket of homemade cookies and a polite but firm request to check in on Grandma, who hadn't been seen in town for weeks. "Do you think she's really crazy?" Charlie asked, clutching the basket tightly, trying to ignore the uneasy churn in his stomach. "I don't know," Lily replied, brushing a branch out of their path. "But she's family, right? And besides, it's probably just a bunch of stories." The path wound through the garden, wild and sprawling, with flowers that seemed to defy nature itself, vines as thick as arms twisted around statues with missing heads, and the air was sweet and heavy with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Though it was still afternoon. "Is it me, or is it getting warm all of a sudden?" Charlie asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Before Lily could answer, the garden's unsettling beauty took a darker turn. The air shimmered with an unnatural heat, and flames flickered amidst the flowers. The children stopped short, watching as fire danced along the edges of the path without consuming anything in its wake. "What the heck?" Lily exclaimed, pulling Charlie back. "I've been expecting you," a voice crooned, as dry and crackling as autumn leaves. Grandma Drusilla emerged from the other side of the garden. Her hair was wild, like a storm cloud caught in a net, and her eyes glinted like dark, polished stones. She wore a patchwork dress that seemed to rustle and shift like the leaves themselves. "Grandma, what's going on?" Lily asked, pushing down, her fear to keep her voice steady. Grandma Drusilla chuckled, a sound like the kindling of a fire, and gestured towards her garden. "The earth's restless, child. It speaks to me at night and tells me its secrets, and sometimes," she added, with a conspiratorial wink, "it likes to show off." Charlie blinked rapidly, trying to process the scene. The garden's on fire, but nothing's burning. It doesn't make any sense. "Oh, Sense hasn't visited this place in years," Drusilla said, moving forward with an elegance that defied her age. She beckoned them closer as the flames retreated obediently, almost reverently. Lily exchanged a wary glance with Charlie, but curiosity pushed them forward. They followed Drusilla deeper into the garden until they reached a clearing where an enormous tree sat. Its trunk was charred black, yet healthy green leaves sprouted defiantly all over its branches. "This," Grandmother Drusilla whispered, "is the heart of the garden." A glowing fissure ran up the tree, pulsing like a heartbeat, and from it erupted a flickering flame that danced but did not consume. Long ago, before there was Eldergrove, this land was feast and fable for the fairies, she explained, her voice dropping to a raspy whisper. "They left, but their magic didn't. Some nights, if the stars align, the old powers spark up from the ground." Charlie and Lily stood transfixed. The flames swirled hypnotically, casting shadows that writhed like living creatures. A warmth like a cozy hearth enveloped them, banishing fears they hadn't realized they were holding. Lily broke the entranced silence. "Is that why you're out here all the time?" Drusilla nodded solemnly. "I keep watch. Make sure the magic doesn't wake up on the wrong side of the bed." She cackled as if this were the finest joke she had ever made, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. The ground rumbled gently like the purr of a giant, contented cat, and the fiery spectacle began to dim. The flames curled back into the fissure, leaving the garden eerily peaceful. "You see," Drusilla said, turning to the children, "what folks in town forget is that there's beauty in madness, a certain touch of magic in the unexpected." The garden was merely a garden again, unassuming in the hazy afternoon light. The children were left with the echo of wonder and an unspoken bond of shared secrets. As they walked back to the house with Grandma Drusilla, hand in hand, Charlie couldn't help but glance back at the garden. Will it happen again? Drusilla's eyes twinkled with mysteries unfathomable. "Oh, one never knows, dear heart, but perhaps you'll come and see when it does." No one ever quite knew what became of Grandma Drusilla's garden. If you asked Charlie and Lily about it years later, they'd simply smile and tell you that all flowers need tending, especially those that breathe fire. And in their quiet way, they would promise to tend to both the garden and its keeper, ensuring the legends of Eldergrove continue to grow as wild and beautiful as the flames themselves.